There is a period in the journey of almost every ambitious person that is more confusing and more painful than any outright failure. It is the period of silence. It's the season when you are doing everything right. You are working hard, you are praying, you are holding the faith, but your prayers seem to hit a brass ceiling and bounce back. The heavens feel silent. The opportunities dry up. The momentum you once had grinds to a halt. It feels like the very power you have been seeking has turned its back on you, distancing itself at the exact moment you need it most. This experience, the agony of divine silence, is a crucible for the soul. It is where most people give up. We interpret the silence as a no. We see the distance as a sign of rejection or disapproval. We conclude that our dream was not meant to be, that we are on the wrong path, or that we are simply not worthy. And so we retreat, we lower our expectations, and we abandon the very pursuit that once set our hearts on fire. But what if this interpretation is completely wrong? What if the silence is not a rejection, but a requirement? What if God's apparent distance is not an act of abandonment, but an act of intense and intimate preparation? What if the desert you are in right now is not your prison, but your training ground for the palace that is being prepared for you? This reframing of silence as preparation is one of the most powerful mindset shifts you can make, and it is a recurring theme in the lives of the greatest figures in history. On this channel, we decode these deep spiritual and psychological laws, using the wisdom of the Bible and the science of Napoleon Hill. If you are ready to understand the profound purpose behind your own desert season and learn how to navigate it, subscribe now and activate your notifications. Consider the ultimate case study of this principle, the life of Moses. For the first 40 years of his life, he was a prince of Egypt, living in the heart of power, seemingly being groomed for greatness. Then, after a fatal mistake, he is cast out. He spends the next 40 years, 4 decades, in complete obscurity as a forgotten shepherd in the desolate land of Midian. Imagine the feeling. From a palace to a desert, from a prince to a shepherd. For 40 years, there is no divine visitation, no grand prophecy, no sign that he is still part of a great plan. There is only the silence of the desert, the wind, and the sheep. From his perspective, God had completely and utterly distanced himself. His destiny was dead, but we, with the benefit of hindsight, know that this was not the end. It was the necessary intermission. This period of distance was the most crucial phase of his development, and Napoleon Hill, in his own pragmatic language, discovered the same pattern in the lives of the great industrialists he studied. He found that there is almost always a period of quiet, unseen gestation, a testing phase that precedes any monumental achievement. It is a time when the world sees nothing, but on the inside, everything is being rebuilt. So why is this period of distance so necessary? What was happening to Moses during those 40 years in the desert that was so essential for his ultimate mission? And what is happening to you right now in your own season of silence? To understand, we must enter the desert with him and learn the lessons that can only be taught in the quiet agony of waiting. To understand why a period of distance and silence is so often a prerequisite for a great blessing, we must understand the purpose of the desert. The desert in our spiritual and personal journey is not a place of punishment. It is a divine forge. It is the place where we are unmade and then remade, stronger and purer than before. Moses' 40 years as a forgotten shepherd was the most important and productive period of his entire life because it was designed to accomplish 2 critical tasks. First, to help him unlearn everything that was holding him back, and second, to forge in him the character that his destiny would require. Let's first look at the process of unlearning. For the first 40 years of his life, Moses was a prince of Egypt. He was trained in the methods of the most powerful empire on earth. His identity was that of a man of power, of privilege, of action. And how did he try to solve the problem of his people's slavery? He used the methods he knew: force, anger, and his own strength. He saw an injustice, and he killed an Egyptian taskmaster. This was the act of a prince, a man who believed he could impose his will upon the world. And what was the result? It backfired completely. It did not liberate his people. It forced him into exile. His old identity, his old methods, his reliance on his own power were not the tools for his true mission. They were, in fact, the greatest obstacles to it. And so, before God could bless him, he had to distance him. The 40 years in the desert were a divine detoxification. It was the process of stripping away the pride of the prince, the impatience of the powerful, the arrogance of the self-reliant. He had to unlearn the habit of trying to solve his problems with his own limited strength. We, too, must often be led into a desert season to be cured of our own toxic habits, our pride, our need for control, our reliance on old methods that are no longer working. The divine silence is often the sound of our old ineffective self being gently starved to death. But the desert is not just about unlearning, it is about forging. While the prince was dying, the prophet was being born. Consider the skills that are forged in the crucible of a desert, skills that cannot be learned in a palace. As a shepherd, Moses learned humility. He went from being served by an army of slaves to serving a flock of simple sheep. He learned patience. You cannot rush a flock, you must move at their pace, a lesson that would be indispensable for leading 2 million stubborn and complaining people through that very same desert. He learned resilience and contentment, surviving in a harsh environment with only the basics. The luxuries of the palace were replaced by the strength of his own character. The desert stripped him of his weaknesses and forged in him the exact strengths his monumental blessing would demand. He entered the desert as an impulsive prince. He emerged 40 years later as a humble, patient, and resilient leader, ready to be a vessel for a power far greater than his own. This is the purpose of your desert. The season of silence you may be in right now is not empty. It is a classroom. The financial struggle is forging in you a new resilience and a new respect for resources. The career stagnation is teaching you a patience you didn't know you had. The lack of outside opportunities is forcing you to look inside and discover strengths you never knew existed. God has distanced you not to abandon you, but to rebuild you. He is forging you into the person who is strong enough to handle the blessing that is on its way. This idea of a silent period of preparation is a profound spiritual concept revealed in the life of Moses. But how does this process work on a psychological level? What did Napoleon Hill, the scientist of the mind, discover about this necessary period of unseen growth that precedes all great achievement? The story of Moses in the desert gives us a profound spiritual framework for understanding our seasons of silence. It shows us that this period of distance is a divine forge for unlearning our weaknesses and forging our character. But how does this process work on a psychological and energetic level? For this, we turn to the science of the mind as decoded by Napoleon Hill. What the Bible describes as a desert of preparation, Hill identified as a fundamental law of nature and achievement. We can call it the law of gestation. Think of the journey of any great creation in the natural world. A farmer plants a seed. Does he see a full-grown plant the next day? Of course not. The seed, once planted in the fertile darkness of the soil, begins a period of silent, unseen, and intense activity. It is gathering nutrients, breaking down its own shell, and putting down roots. This is its gestation period. To the impatient observer on the surface, it looks like nothing is happening. But underground, in the silence, all the most important work is being done. Napoleon Hill discovered that our goals and desires follow this exact same natural law. The process begins when you, through the creation of a definite purpose, plant a new seed in the fertile soil of your subconscious mind. The daily act of autosuggestion, of repeating your purpose with emotion, is the act of watering that seed. Once this is done, the law of gestation takes over. Your subconscious mind begins its silent, unseen work. It starts to make new connections. It starts to attract the resources you will need. It begins to formulate the perfect plan, arranging circumstances in your favor, far below the level of your conscious awareness. This period of subconscious internal work is the very thing that we experience as divine silence or distance, and here we find the great test that separates the winners from the masses. The amateur farmer, anxious and full of doubt, cannot stand the silence. After a few days of seeing no results on the surface, he digs up the seed to see if it's growing, and in doing so, he kills it. This is what most of us do with our greatest ambitions. We plant the seed of a new goal. We work on it for a short time, and when we don't see immediate miraculous results, we allow doubt to creep in. We stop watering the seed with our faith. We dig it up with our worry, and we conclude that it was never meant to be. We fail the test of the gestation period. This law of gestation is the secret to surviving and even thriving in your desert season. If you are ready to master the art of trusting this unseen process and finally see your own goals come to fruition, make sure you are subscribed to this channel, because this is the deep work we are committed to. The master achiever, as studied by Hill, operates like a master farmer. He understands the law of gestation. He plants his seed with faith, and then he demonstrates his trust in the process through persistence. He continues to water the ground, to practice his affirmations, to take the small daily actions aligned with his purpose, even when he sees no visible proof that his efforts are working. His faith is not dependent on external evidence. His faith is the very thing that creates the external evidence. This is the secret to Moses' 40 years in the desert. He was in a period of divine gestation. On the surface, he was just a shepherd, living a life of obscurity. But underground, in the soil of his soul, the seed of his destiny was being nurtured. His character was putting down deep roots of humility and patience. His old identity was being broken down to release the new life within. He was passing the test of persistence. The feeling of distance from God or from your goal is an illusion. The silence is not a sign of absence. It is a sign that the work has moved underground. Infinite intelligence has not abandoned you. It is working in the dark on your behalf, preparing the foundation for the blessing that is to come. Your job during this period is not to panic, but to protect the process. Your job is to stand guard over your planted seed, to keep the soil of your mind free from the weeds of doubt, and to continue to water it with your unwavering faith. So if this period of silence is actually a sacred period of growth, what is our role? How should we act while we are in the desert? What are the disciplines that ensure our seed will survive the gestation and finally break through to the surface? If the season of divine distance is, in fact, a sacred period of gestation, then our role during this time is not one of passive waiting, but of active cultivation. A wise farmer does not simply throw a seed in the ground and walk away for 3 months. He actively tends to the soil, protects it from weeds, and waters it with faith, trusting the unseen process that is happening in the darkness. This chapter is your manual for tending to the soil of your own soul during your desert season. It consists of 3 core disciplines drawn from the philosophy of Napoleon Hill, designed to ensure that your seed not only survives the gestation, but emerges with unstoppable force. Discipline 1. Trust the unseen process. The greatest enemy in the desert is doubt. It is the voice that whispers, "Nothing is happening. This is a waste of time. You have been forgotten." Your first and most important discipline is to actively combat this voice by practicing applied faith. This is the core of your work during the gestation period. It is the act of watering the seed. Practically, this means you must be more disciplined with your daily ritual of auto-suggestion during the silent season than at any other time. You must, every morning and every night, continue to declare your definite purpose as an accomplished fact. You must continue to generate the powerful emotion of your wish fulfilled. You do this precisely because your external reality is showing you no evidence of progress. Your faith is not a response to your reality. It is the force that creates your reality. This discipline is an act of defiance against doubt. Every time you perform your ritual, you are telling the universe and your own subconscious mind, I don't care what the silence sounds like. I don't care what the lack of evidence looks like. I trust the process. I know the seed is growing underground, and I will continue to water it until the harvest comes. Discipline 2. Do the daily work with excellence. The second temptation in the desert is to do nothing, to become paralyzed while you wait for your big break. This is a fatal mistake. Look at Moses. He spent 40 years in the desert. What did he do? He tended sheep. It was not a glamorous job. It seemed completely disconnected from his destiny to be a great leader. But he did it. He showed up every day. He was a shepherd. This is the discipline of persistence. Your work during your season of silence is to do the sheep tending of your own life with absolute excellence. Whatever your current work is, even if it's not your ultimate dream job, do it to the best of your ability. Whatever small daily actions you can take that are even remotely aligned with your purpose, do them consistently. This daily work does two things. First, it is your character forge. It's in the repetition of these small, unglamorous tasks that you build the habits of discipline, responsibility, and excellence that you will need to manage the great blessing when it arrives. Second, it keeps you in a state of productive motion. The universe rewards action, not idleness. By doing your daily work with a positive mental attitude, you are demonstrating that you are a reliable partner, a good steward, ready for the next level. Discipline 3. Listen for the call. The desert season does not last forever. The gestation period eventually ends. Your third discipline, therefore, is to cultivate a state of keen and patient receptivity. You must trust the process and do the daily work, but you must also keep your eyes open for the sign that the season is changing. For Moses, this sign was the burning bush. It was an anomaly, something unexpected that appeared in the middle of his ordinary routine. And crucially, when he saw it, he turned aside to see. He was alert. He was curious. He was receptive. Your burning bush moment, your call to the next level, will likely also appear in an unexpected way. It will be the coincidental phone call, the inspired idea that flashes into your mind, the door that suddenly opens where there was once a wall. If you are too consumed by your own despair or distracted by the noise of the world, you can miss the signal. This discipline is about practicing silence and listening to your intuition. It is about maintaining your connection with infinite intelligence, staying alert for the next set of instructions. Trust the unseen process. Do the daily work with excellence, and listen for the call. These are the 3 disciplines to navigate your desert. When you practice them, you transform the desert from a prison of waiting into a powerful incubator of becoming. You are no longer just waiting. You are actively preparing, and when the preparation is finally complete, the silence will be broken. The desert season does not last forever. The law of gestation is not a law of infinite waiting. It is a law of perfect timing. For 40 years, Moses practiced the disciplines of the desert. He trusted the unseen process. He did his daily work with excellence, and he remained open. And then, one day, in the middle of his ordinary routine, the extraordinary happened. He saw a bush that was on fire, but was not consumed. This was his burning bush moment. It was the signal that the period of preparation was over, and the period of performance was about to begin. The silence was broken. The call was issued, and here we discover the ultimate reason behind the divine distance, the final secret to understanding God's timing. When the call finally came, was Moses the same man who had fled from Egypt 40 years earlier? Was he the same impulsive prince who relied on his own strength? No. The man who stood before the burning bush was a new creation. He was humble, so much so that he initially doubted his own ability. He was patient. He was resilient. He was the finished product of the divine forge, and this reveals the profound truth. The blessing is often delayed, not because it is not ready for you, but because you are not yet ready for it. God did not distance himself from Moses to punish him. He distanced him to prepare him. He knew that the impulsive prince of Egypt would have failed spectacularly at the monumental task of liberating a nation. He would have been crushed by the weight of the responsibility. The 40 years of silence was an act of profound love and strategic wisdom. It was the necessary time to forge Moses into the vessel that was strong enough to contain the immense blessing and power that was destined for him. This is the law for your life. The promotion you are asking for, the business you want to build, the wealth you desire to create, these things come with a weight. The weight of responsibility, of leadership, of stewardship. If that blessing were given to you before your character was ready for it, it would not be a blessing. It would be a curse. It would destroy you. The period of divine silence in your own life is your preparation. The financial struggles are forging your resilience. The frustrating delays are teaching you patience. The lack of external validation is forcing you to build an unshakable core of inner self-worth. You are not being denied. You are being developed. You are not being forgotten. You are being forged. This is the ultimate mindset that Napoleon Hill taught. He understood that success was not just about applying techniques. It was about becoming the person who was worthy of success. The principles in Think and Grow Rich are not just tools to get rich. They are tools to develop the character, the discipline, and the faith of a master achiever. This is the ultimate secret of divine timing and the purpose behind the seasons of distance. This is the mindset we are committed to helping you build right here. If you are ready to master the art of preparation and become the person who is truly ready for the great blessings meant for you, then ensure you are subscribed, as our work together has just begun. So, look at the desert you are in right now. Look at the silence. And instead of seeing it as rejection, choose to see it as your classroom. Instead of hearing abandonment, choose to hear the sound of the forge, of your own character being strengthened, of your own capacity being expanded. Trust the desert. The blessing is not being denied. It is being prepared, and you are being prepared for it. Do your daily work, trust the unseen process, and keep your eyes open. Your burning bush is coming.